This is Note Taking Guide 5.2, Graphing Parabolas in Vertex Form. So we're going to just kind of compare this to the absolute value graphs that we graphed yesterday for just a minute. So what I want you to notice here is that this still starts at the vertex point and it still follows a pattern. So what pattern it follows is what we need to figure out. So this goes over 1, up 1, over 1, up 3, and over 1, up 5 for our pattern. So 1, 3, 5. Could anybody guess what the next pattern would be in the number, or which number in the pattern it would be? Well, if I wanted to continue going, it would be over 1, up 7. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. It's really just the odd numbers. So I'm going to teach you how to graph these using the pattern of 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And I'm going to teach you how to move them left or right or up or down according to the way that they are in vertex form, like I did yesterday on the absolute value graphs. Now I do want to bring out a point that this graph that we're graphing today is a parabola, and it comes from an x squared graph here. So this is the parent function graph right here. So let's just remind you here, just like yesterday, if we have a number added back behind, we're going up. We have a number subtracted back behind, we're going down. Now here's the part that was a little bit confusing yesterday, but now that we have it, I think we're good. If it's plus 2 inside, it's moving left. If it's minus 2 inside, it's moving right. Then if you have a negative out in front, then it reflects that graph upside down. It totally just flips the graph upside down. You follow the same pattern but in the negative direction. And then if you have a number out in front like that, yesterday it changed our pattern. Today it is also going to change our pattern. Our normal pattern on this is 1, 3, 5. What we do is take that 1, 3, and we 5, and we times it by the 2 that's out front to get 2, 6, and 10 for our new pattern. I'm going to show you how to do that though by graphing these for you. So let's talk about this. First of all, this first one that we're going to graph, and you can't see it up there, but it said y equals x squared. And this is just the original graph that is showing up above even, but just let's talk about it. If you see, there's nothing added or subtracted anywhere on this, which tells me I'm starting at the origin. And then from there I would follow my pattern. My pattern was over 1, up 1, over 1, up 3, and then over 1, up 5. When I get those ordered pairs graphed, I'm going to simply draw my parabola through it. A point to be made today that's important is that this parabola is a curve. Yesterday when we were doing the absolute value graph, it had that pointed V-shaped look to it, but this is definitely a curve, so make sure that you're drawing it as a curve. All right, well, we're looking at this curve right here. Our vertex point is 0, 0. It starts at 0, 0. Now I want to talk about what an axis of symmetry is for just a minute. It's the same as a line of symmetry. It's the spot where we could cut this graph into 2 equal pieces. And so that line of symmetry is the line, or the equation of the line where that line can be drawn. So this is at 0 on the x-axis, and then it's a vertical line, so we know that line's represented by x equals 0. Now I'm going to ask you today to have a little bit of fun with this and tell me by a description whether or not this is a smiley face or a frowny face. We know that this one's a smiley face because it's right side up. If it was going upside down, we would call that a frowny face, and we would know because it would have a negative out in front of it. So the last question is, what pattern did we follow? We followed 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 because there was no pattern change on this graph. All right, so here's our next one that we're going to do. This one does have a change in it. That plus 2 right there tells me to move left 2. So instead of starting at the origin, I'm going to start left 2. Now this does not have a pattern change. It doesn't have a negative out in front, and there's no up or down going on behind it. So from there I'm going over 1 and up 1 for my next ordered pair, and then over 1, up 3 for my next spot. And I could go over 1, up 5 from there, but my graph goes through those ordered pairs. It's a parabola. So if we're talking about our vertex point there, our vertex point would be our start point on our graph, which would be a -2, 0. our axis of symmetry would be the line that goes through that vertex point. So that would be at x equals -2. And again, a point to be made right here is this line of symmetry will always go through the x part of our vertex point. Our description today, this one's going to be a smiley face. And what pattern did we follow? We followed 1, 3, 5, 7, and we kept going 9 if we were going to keep going here. Okay, let's go take a look at our next one. Okay, this time we're doing x squared minus 4. So this minus 4 that's thrown back behind is going to be down 4. So we're going to go down 4 and we're going to draw our vertex point, our first ordered pair. Then we're going to follow our pattern there. Our pattern is the normal pattern. It's 1, 3, 5 because we know there was nothing added or multiplied out in front to change our pattern. Now just from going down 4, I know what my vertex point is. My vertex point is 0, 4, negative 4 I should say. And then from there, I can find my axis of symmetry. It's always the x value in my vertex point, so x equals 0. The description, well, this is positive out front, so I know this is going to be a smiley face. And then I can just sketch a graph of this really fast. So over 1, up 1. Over 1, up 3. Over 1, up 5. And we can just draw a graph through those ordered pairs. All right, we're going to do a little bit more even on this next one. So let's just take a look at it for a minute and see what's going on here. We have a +1, which means left 1. We have a -3, which means down 3. So left 1 and down 3 is our starting point. That's our vertex point of our parabola. So that will be a -1, -3. That automatically tells me my axis of symmetry is at x equals -1. Because out front is positive, I know it's going to be a smiley face. And because there was no number out in front, I know the pattern change is not happening. It's just going to be 1, 3, 5 still. Okay, so I'm going to go over 1, up 1. Over 1, up 3. And then over 1, up 5 if I wanted to go one more time. And then I'm just going to draw my graph through those ordered pairs. Okay, great job on that, you guys. Let's try another one. So a lot of things going on here on this one, including a pattern change. But let's just worry about what we know right off the bat. We know we're going right 3 and down 4. So right here. That vertex point is 3, -4, which makes my axis of symmetry x equals 3. I know because the number out in front is positive, it's going to be a smiley face. And then I know that my pattern is normally 1, 3, 5, but I have this 2 out in front, so I have to times my pattern by 2. When I do that, I get 2, 6, and 10. Now again, my pattern keeps continuing, but that's enough for us to graph here. We're going to go over 1 and up 2, over 1 and up 6, and then over 1 and up 10 if we wanted to keep going. Our graph comes through those ordered pairs, and we're done right there. All right, one last one to go here. This time we have a -4 right here, which tells us to start down 4, which means our vertex point is 0, -4, which means my axis of symmetry is at x equals 0. Didn't really need to put parentheses out there in front, so I'm going to erase those. My description, now notice this time that that's a negative sign right there. When that's negative, I'm going to be a frowny face instead of a smiley face. And my original pattern is 1, 3, 5, but I have to take that pattern and I have to multiply that pattern through by a -1/2. So my new pattern becomes a -1/2, a -3/2, and a -5/2. Now, if you want to change those to decimal point numbers, that's totally okay to do. Sometimes it's easier to graph them as decimal point numbers. This would be a negative 0.5, this is a negative 1.5, and this is a negative 2.5. And we're just going to graph that as our pattern. So over 1, down a half. Then from there, over 1, down 1.5. And then we can just draw our graph through those ordered pairs.